Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. This is Orrin Johnson filling in for Sam Shad. Today on today's program, we have Douglas Goodman, who's the founder and executive director for Nevadans for Election Reform. When we come back.
Liberal D.C. spending is making life in Nevada painfully expensive.
It's a killer, it really is. Groceries, everything.
I have no choice. I gotta get gas one way or another.
Not only gas prices, everything is going up.
Senator Catherine Cortez Masto joined fellow D.C. liberals voting for trillions in government spending, causing inflation and higher costs, making it harder for Nevadans to get by. Tell Senator Cortez Masto to stop voting for reckless spending and start fighting inflation.
Modern boutique Ahern Hotel and Events Center in Las Vegas. Host meetings and events on 2 floors. Stay in luxurious rooms and suites. Unlimited branding opportunities. Regional Italian cuisine by Chef Mark Segrizi. Flexible event spaces. Full buyout options. Visit ahernhotel.com today.
I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker. Entertainment here at the Carson Valley Inn is extraordinary.
Yeah, super proud of the TJ's Corral, our outdoor venue, about 1,500 seats. We've had first-class entertainment out there. We've had Merle Haggard, we've had Chris Young, we've had Lee Brice a couple times, we've had Pat Benatar, Joan Jett, who's in the Hall of Fame. We're real proud out there, and it's just a great time. Watch CarsonValleyInn.com and grab those tickets early. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
Pro Group Management offers workers' comp services to a growing number of industries. As businesses grow and change with the times, the need for a solid workers' comp program must be flexible and up to date. The evolving nature of regulations can make staying ahead of complex tasks challenging. But Pro Group Management simplifies the work so your industry can move forward and succeed. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. This is Orrin Johnson filling in for Sam Shad. With me is Douglas Goodman, who's the founder and executive director of Nevadans for Election Reform. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
So you are very active in the push to change our election systems to what we call a ranked choice voting system. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Certainly. This is something that actually we first brought up back in 2013. And we're fortunate enough in the 2015 session to actually have a bill draft submitted to do what was called a top 3 primary. With ranked choice voting.
So what is the ranked choice? Why not just an open primary, but something different? Explain.
Well, what ranked choice is, it's everyday choices. And instead of just voting for one candidate and saying, oh, I've got to settle, I really can't vote my conscience, what ranking the candidates does is allows you to actually vote your conscience. Say, I like candidate X. They may not win, but I really like them. I'm going to give them my first choice vote. Then, okay, candidate B, I'm going to give them my second choice vote. The important thing happens here is that if for some reason your first choice is eliminated during the tabulation, your vote is transferred to your second choice. And really one of the best quotes I ever heard to explain this was back in 2018 when Santa Fe, New Mexico held their first primary, their first election using ranked choice voting. Bill Richardson, who was former state governor, former UN ambassador, was quoted as saying that once ranked choice voting was explained, it made sense, and even though my first choice candidate didn't win, my third choice did, so I felt my vote still counted.
So let me ask you, that obviously this would be a major change in the way we choose our elected officials. What problem is it that you're trying to solve?
Right now, well, first of all, you have to admit that political parties are private organizations. And in Nevada right now, you have the largest voting bloc in the state do not belong to either of the major parties. And among 18 to 34-year-olds, that segment is over 50%. But these voters are paying for the elections. If you're a Republican, you're paying for the Democratic primary. If you're a Democrat or nonpartisan, you're paying for this election, but you're systemically prevented from participating. It's a form of voter suppression.
Well, you're not prevented. You're choosing not to participate by choosing not to register with the party. Isn't that fair to say?
That is fair to say, but you also now have this growing segment that's just frustrated not being represented by the parties. So by changing the system, now you're allowing these voters to have their voice, to be part of the choice, part of making the choice.
So how does that make governance better? That's obviously right now we're in a time of terrible polarization and tribalism amongst the parties. How does this change that? How does this kind of moderate the parties that are in fact an intrinsically part of our governing system?
Right now we're in a situation where nothing gets solved because those responsible refuse to collaborate, can't collaborate because I'm going to get primaried, or I'm not going to, I'll lose my seat. Well, instead of now focusing on just this very narrow base, the vocal minority of the party, now candidates, lawmakers, they're focusing on the entire electorate. So this has been proven. It allows for collaboration. It takes down the tone of campaigns. Because now, instead of just saying, I just want your vote, well, if you don't like me as your first choice, how about giving me your second choice? And you actually had 2 gubernatorial candidates in Maine back in 2020 campaigning together with that very message. And it is proven. It takes the tone down, it allows for collaboration, and you don't have to worry about being primaried anymore because you're talking to the larger audience.
But let me ask you this, that what you just said, it brings up a concern for me that I hadn't thought of until you just said it. In some ways, I don't necessarily want my candidates holding hands every time. I want there to be some choice. I want there to be some contrast. I want there to be still a workable but still somewhat adversarial system. I think that that's all part of the checks and balances of our system. So what you just described is almost a uniparty that this would come about. So how do you respond to that?
Okay, no, it doesn't. It does not change the party structure. It does not change a candidate from holding to their values. What it does do is allows lawmakers, allows candidates to actually think about and address the larger audience, get their message out to the larger audience, to the whole group of voters, and takes away this, in legislating, takes away this fear, well, if I really want to try to solve this problem, I'd get primaried. Well, now I can do that. So it's not saying you have to compromise your positions. It's not saying you have to compromise your values. What it is doing is allowing you then to sit down with the opposition and talk about it.
So why can't we do that with just an open primary system like California uses for most of theirs, our nonpartisan races use here in Nevada? Why do this? Why add a layer of complication?
Okay, with the open primary, and you have an open primary which in Nevada, or if you adopt it in Nevada or other states, say, I want the Republican ballot. I want the Democratic ballot. You don't have this choice of, I like this Republican, but I like this Democrat. In a nonpartisan open primary, when you have all candidates on the ballot and everybody votes, you have your choice among all candidates. That's the big difference.
Got it. And we'll continue with Doug Goodman when we come back. Thank you.
Liberal D.C. spending is making life in Nevada painfully expensive.
It's a killer. It really is. Groceries, everything.
I have no choice. I got to get gas one way or another.
Not only gas prices, everything is going up.
Senator Catherine Cortez Masto joined fellow D.C. liberals voting for trillions in government spending, causing inflation and higher costs, making it harder for Nevadans to get by. Tell Senator Cortez Masto to stop voting for reckless spending and start fighting inflation.
As you know, Reno is booming.
Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org. Hi, I'm Renee Summerauer, digital news anchor here at 7 at 7. Watch our streaming nonstop newscast immediately with your mobile phone. 7 at 7 is the new way for you to get every bit of local news you need in just 7 minutes. Breaking news, local neighborhood news, weather, and sports are just a click away. Reporters bring you all of what's happening in the Valley. From Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, YouTube, and more. Get every bit of local news you need from the RJ and LVRJ.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. This is Orrin Johnson filling in for Sam Shad, and again with me is Doug Goodman, who's the founder and executive director of Nevadans for Election Reform. So Doug, I want to talk about election integrity, which has become a huge issue, especially in Republican primaries. Is your organization involved with that at all, or are you kind of focused on the ranked choice voting?
We're not involved with the election integrity, but I am also serve as vice chair on the Secretary of State's Advisory Committee on Participatory Democracy. And the one thing we have to look at when it comes to election integrity is the results here in Nevada, what actually happens. And when you have only 3-4, cases being prosecuted, and out of millions of votes, millions of ballots, you look at how our elections officials, administer the elections, the checks and balances, the controls, everything from the polling locations on through the ballot tabulation. I don't really think there is a problem with integrity in our elections.
Well, and that's not my question. So,
okay.
So a lot of polls, and it's probably a bad question, but a lot of polls here in Nevada show a third of Nevadans, and they're not all Republicans, a lot of Democrats too, don't have faith that the outcome of the last election was valid. And this is not unique to any one political party. No. And we spent the last 4 years when Trump was a president with Hillary Clinton essentially saying that the election was stolen or that it was tampered with. And this has been going on for years. So, and nationwide, it's something closer to 40% of people, including a significant number of Democrats, have some concerns. So how do we address that? How do activists like yourselves and elected officials not just make sure, actually make sure that elections are secure, but make sure that people feel that they're secure, which is just as important?
Oh, I think it's very important that people have to feel that the elections are secure and well run. And I think that has to come down to education. I think it has to come down to really being totally visible. I know, in fact, Washoe County was live streaming the vote counting. You could go online and actually watch it. And I think it needs more of that. I think people really need to see the process in action. I think if you have people just volunteer at the polls and actually say, I want to see this. My wife was working the polls this last election, and one of the people working with her said, I wanted to see this for myself. And so I think that's another important part to it.
So I agree with you. One of the issues is that now we're sending out ballots in the mail, whether you ask for it or not. And now we have all these just paper ballots floating around. That really bothers me. That really, really bothers me. And so there's not necessarily a polling place where people can see it. It's just a bunch of envelopes that come. And so is that something that needs to change?
No, I think, again, part of the education, I think when you vote, if you have your mail ballot and you want to try, you vote that, and then you want to try to vote again in person, it's not going to let you. Again, it's more part of the education and the being completely, here's what happens. Here's the picture of the screen. Here's what happens. Here's what happens if you request another ballot. Here's the whole process, and show it. Because can somebody, get a second ballot? Yes. There are things that need to be tightened up. And
I'm glad you said that, because I think that's indubitably. Let me ask you this. Ranked choice, anytime there's change, people are nervous about these institutions. There's consistency is something that gives us comfort. And so in addition to all the concern about election integrity that so many people have, will radically changing the way we elect people in this new way, do you think that there's a risk that could add to the fears people have that the real deciders are in the back room counting the votes and not the people actually casting the votes?
Again, it comes down to education. Once the process is explained, people say, oh, yeah, this is like, I'm going to my favorite restaurant and they don't have what I want. What's really very interesting is some of the largest opposition to this is the establishment wing of the Democratic Party. But when you go to the 2020 caucus, the early voting section, they used ranked choice voting.
And we're going to talk about that opposition when we come back. Thank you.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years.
Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
Each day, the Children's Advocacy Alliance partners with leaders, legislators, and families across Nevada to improve children's health, education, economic well-being, and safety. We recognize Nevada will be no better than the state of its children. Be a part of this change. Be a supporter of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. For more information, go to caanv.org.
Southwest Specialties has been making the homes and businesses of Nevada beautiful for more than 20 years. Their experienced designers and craftsmen create the walkways, backyards, water features, and a variety of outdoor cooking areas that add curb appeal and value to your investment. Call today or visit them at their website and see how they can make your outdoor spaces special. Southwest Specialties, creative, distinctive, beautiful.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. This is Orrin Johnson filling in for Sam Shad. And again, with me is Doug Goodman, who's the founder and executive director of Nevadans for Election Integrity. So right now, there's a ballot initiative that's being circulated to allow for ranked choice of voting to actually amend the Constitution. Is that correct? Yes. And the deadline for getting the signatures is not passed yet. The process is still ongoing. Is that correct?
The deadline to turn in the signatures is the 29th of this month. 140,000 signatures are required. We will be turning in close to 240,000.
All right. So now, you may not get on the ballot if some powerful people have their way. The Supreme Court just heard some oral arguments in a lawsuit opposing the ballot initiative. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Democratic Party, the establishment wing of the Democratic Party, has challenged every move over the years. They lost in district court against this initiative and brought it up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court did hear oral arguments on the 8th, and hopefully we'll have a decision soon.
No deadline from the Supreme Court.
But the signatures will be turned in before deadline, will be ballot qualified, and if as long as the court doesn't intervene.
So what are the issues, though? Explain to us what the issues are, why these prominent Democrats are suing to prevent this from even being brought before the voters as an option.
Well, the technical things they're using are statement of effect, which appears on the ballot, which is a 250-word statement saying here's what it does. And the second is what they call single subject rule, which is usually interpreted very broadly in Nevada. It says a petition can only deal with one subject. When we look at history, not only through other initiatives, but through legislation not getting hearings, it all comes down to power and the fact that going to a different system like this, giving all the voters a clear choice, a clear voice, is something that's fearful. This could impact our power. And that's, again, when you find out, here's the arguments, but we just used this process in our caucuses in 2020. One of the arguments against the initiative is, oh, this will be too confusing to minorities. Yet,
which is not exactly a flattering.
No,
I always bristle a little bit when somebody says, "Well, something's too hard for minorities to do, so we shouldn't do it," like voter ID or something else like that. Yeah. I think that's a false and ridiculous thing.
And
to
then
say.
You had a former assemblywoman who's now a member of the Las Vegas City Council, put out a questionnaire in both English and Spanish to her constituents, saying, of these 8 issues, please list your 3 most important in order of preference in English and Spanish. So it's,
right.
Okay.
so obviously the Democrats, as opposed to the Republicans in this state, have an incredibly well-oiled machine, although maybe a little less oil than it used to have. But what we saw in this last election cycle is that almost every Republican primary race was heavily contested with very interesting contrast between the candidates, and the Democrats had basically no primary opposition to speak of. For frustrated Democrats out there, how does this system improve that?
Well, first of all, what happens is, let me say, I'm a nonpartisan. Mm-hmm. But for frustrated Democrats, what this does is let them choose a candidate potentially who is more closely aligned with what they would like to see happen. If it would allow maybe more candidates to come up, be on the primary ballot initially, to attract these voters and hopefully be one of the top 5 then advancing to the general election. And so it takes away this internal conflict that voters do have. Oh, I'm going to the polls, I've got to vote for the lesser 2 evils. In this system where I can say, this is my first choice, my second choice, my third choice, that conflict, that internal argument goes away because I can now express my preferences in order.
So let me ask you this. So one of the concerns, obviously, and one of the things people have claimed has exacerbated our tribalism is that the extremists are the ones who win the primary elections. Yes. I don't know that that's true. I don't know that this last election cycle demonstrated that. In fact, I think it did not. But the issue is that a lot of nonpartisans are not in the middle. They're on the edges. They just don't like either party. And so doesn't this risk actually bringing in even more extreme candidates who are otherwise would be on the fringe and risking that they win?
It could. The process itself does not, there's a perception or thought that this type of process is going to bring in more moderate candidates. It's going to, and that may not be the case. That may not be the case. You could still have, extreme candidates. You could have moderate candidates. You could have
and still very well-funded candidates. Money is still going to be an issue.
Money is still going to be an issue.
Connections are still going to be an issue.
Exactly. This does not change that. It does not change the party structure. What it does, it forces the discussion to appeal to more voters, not just this very narrow base, and it allows every voter to have their say. That's the big difference.
And that's where we're going to leave it. Doug, thank you so much for being on and helping educate the voters exactly to say as to this new and innovative and something I'm still have questions about, but I really appreciate the explanations. I appreciate you being here.
I thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
And that was Doug Goodman, founder and executive director of Nevadans for Election Reform. Thank you.
I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker. One of the things I love about the Carson Valley Inn here in beautiful downtown Minden is CV steak. I have eaten here so many times. Tell folks what they can expect when they come here to eat.
It's a beautiful room, great service. We have certified Angus beef, seafood, lamb, a great range of appetizers, and wonderful desserts. Jean-Michel's done a great job of selecting some beautiful wines for us. The customers love it, and we've got a great selection of cocktails as well. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
A bird's eye captures its surroundings at different heights. At Brian Culpa Photography, we can make your imagination soar over buildings, parks, cityscapes, and beyond. Brian's images tell the story and get the job done. If you need a new perspective to tell your story, contact Brian today. Brian Culpa Photography. Experience the bird's eye view at brianculpaphotography.com.
Safety is the #1 priority for the trucking industry. Over $7 billion a year is spent on technology like this electronic eye that will apply the brakes automatically. But the most important factor for safety is the truck driver. These hardworking men and women who safely move over 70% of our nation's freight and 94% of Nevada's. We thank you because trucks move America forward.
With Nevada's only transplant center and verified burn center, the science is here. With award-winning cardiologist and the state's only dedicated heart failure clinic, the talent is here. With Nevada's most advanced robotic surgery, the technology is here. And with the Silver State's only designated pediatric trauma center, hope is here. All because we are here. UMC.
Ahern Rentals began as Signal Gas Station on Las Vegas Boulevard. Founder John Ahern grew the business by offering rentals. His son Don built on John's legacy, growing Ahern Rentals into the largest independently owned American rental company, with 89 locations in 30 states. Don also brought his experience and vision to equipment manufacturing with Extreme Manufacturing and Snorkel. Today, Ahern Rentals continues to bring its family values to a new generation. Learn more at ahern.com.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you. But we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
Thank you for watching Nevada Newsmakers. This has been Orrin Johnson filling in for Sam Shad. We'll see you in the next broadcast.